Colorado's largest school district, Denver, is taking applications from potential school superintendents for another 30 days. The head of the company paid to search for the new leader knows DPS's recent pain, having school leaders here bounced for failing to report abuse allegations. Now, he knows this because he recently left his last job over the same thing.
Max McGee looks stoked following his meeting with the Denver School Board Friday. DPS has faced questions over the handling of allegations of cheerleader abuse at East High School, and 5 East leaders were indicted for failing to report an alleged rape. They're questions similar to the ones Max McGee got in Palo Alto, California. He resigned as superintendent after an outside report slammed his district for its handling of sexual assault and harassment. McGee now leads the company, getting paid $30,000 plus expenses to find Denver's new superintendent.
Well, we asked Denver Public Schools, pardon me, if it knew about McGee's history in Palo Alto. We asked whether they discuss it with him, asked whether the board is focused on finding a new superintendent here who knows the law on handling sexual assault and abuse cases. A DPS spokesman did not directly answer our questions. They simply said that DPS vetted the search firm and any concerns that surfaced. You can read DPS's full statement and that brutal report on McKee's former district on 9news.com. Updates tonight on 2 strange criminal cases we have tried to make sense of last week. Today, prosecutors in Denver revealed the 16-year-old accused of killing 7-year-old Jordan Vaughn is his aunt. They say that she got frustrated with him, so she smothered him and hid his body in her closet. The filthy compound found in New Mexico, just south of the Colorado line, is sounding more and more like some kind of terrorist training camp. Prosecutors say the 11 children found there weren't just being trained to carry out school shootings, but also to go after government targets, law enforcement, and the financial system. NBC reports these children were taught to defend their compound and to kill non-believers. Development in Denver so often seems to pit the developers against the people who don't want to live in the shadows of their plans. Seems only fair. We should also show you where it seems like they're working together and listening. Our Noel Brennan visited the old Loretto Heights campus.
The tower in the administration building is 165 feet tall at its peak. The first residence hall was Pancratia Hall.
Campus tours are tough to come by these days.
I graduated from Loretto Heights College in 1982.
Unless you run into an alumna.
This is the quad.
Like Martha Newland Kirkpatrick.
You know, walking to and from meals and, running to class if you were late.
She still lives nearby.
I didn't go very far, no.
And closely follows the ever-changing story of the Loretto Heights campus.
And in 1988, Loretto Heights College closed. In 2007, they rebranded it to Colorado Heights University, and that closed in 2017, last fall.
Now it's a campus waiting.
Empty and quiet.
Waiting for developers to finalize plans.
There was just tremendous concern as to what was going to happen to the campus.
That's why Martha joined Loretto Heights Community Initiative, a community group that's worked with developers from the start to preserve the campus architecture and history.
We would love to see an educational component on the campus, no matter what. The fact that they're really listening to us and wanting the community input, I think, is really valuable.
While changes are coming,
it's just waiting.
An alumna knows
and
what her campus deserves.
It needs to be rewarded for waiting.
For Next, I'm Noel Brennan.
That's good to see. So, do you think political campaigns have people who do nothing all day but look for unflattering pictures of their opponents? What a way to make a living, huh? But business, and that business, appears to be good, based on the anti-Polis ad on Our Air and elsewhere, the one that has him in the hat that makes him look like a burglar? Picture aside, our Marshall Zelinger put the rest to the truth test.
This is not an ad to vacation in California.
California also has high taxes, crazy regulations that destroy jobs, and radical ideas like single-payer health care.
It's another ad attacking Polis, and I'm going to stop it here because even though these are California claims, they're about to be connected to Colorado. High taxes. That's all depending on what city and county you live in, what your income is, and how much your home is worth. Crazy regulations is an opinionated term and has no support on screen as to what it's referencing. And the term radical ideas is also opinionated, but at least it's followed by a reference to single-payer health care. In California, Democratic gubernatorial candidate Gavin Newsom has campaigned on his support of universal health care for the state of California. Now back to the ad.
That's why they call it Radical California. Jared Polis wants the same thing.
Okay, saying Polis wants the same thing as radical ideas, high taxes, and crazy regulations is an overreach. Plus, high taxes is the only measurable term. The others are based on opinion. And if Colorado were to have higher taxes, voters would have to approve the tax increases at the ballot. But if you look on screen, they're really referencing that Polis wants a single-payer healthcare system. And that's true. Finally, an ad that provides a citation. H.R. 676 is a bill in Congress introduced in January 2017. Polis is a co-sponsor, but he didn't sign on until April 2017. The same month, Democratic Representatives Diana DeGette and Ed Perlmutter co-sponsored as well. It's called Medicare for All, essentially creating a system for free health care, primary care, inpatient, outpatient, ER visits, prescription drugs. Think anything except cosmetic. No copays. On his campaign website, Polis writes, keeping up the fight for universal coverage will take tremendous advocacy and effort from our next governor. But he also writes he wants to develop partnerships with other Western states for a common payer system in the West, meaning a single payer system if multiple Western states were involved together.
Independent experts say a government takeover of healthcare could cost $32 trillion.
This claim is true. However, the claim is about a universal healthcare bill sponsored by Senator Bernie Sanders, which is similar, but not the same one, co-sponsored by Polis.
And would more than double what you pay in federal income taxes each year.
This is just wrong. The report about the costs of universal health care does not say we'll pay double. It says doubling federal and corporate income taxes would not be enough to pay for universal health care. There's a difference. And how we might pay for universal health care is for another story altogether. That one will be 2.5 minutes, too. What's a little confusing about that ad is that it tells you to call Polis at his D.C. congressional office. So is it a gubernatorial ad or not? It's produced by State Solutions, which is a branch of the Republican Governors Association, which has already ran another Rata California ad against Polis in favor of Walker Stapleton. And Kyle, I want to point out, that's the second negative Polis ad that we've put to a truth test, and we didn't do anything with that positive Polis ad, and I kind of want to explain why. It was about the safety of helicopter fuel tanks that Chris Vanderveen has really championed over the last 2 years on this. It was more of a widow's testimony than throwing claims around. Yeah. So that's why we didn't look at that, really. There was nothing to fact-check as much. Polis did support that legislation in support of Congressman Ed Perlmutter's staff as well, so the two of them worked on that together.
Gotcha. We kind of saw Perlmutter as the lead all along, but not really means for a truth test. All right. Thank you very much, Marshall. Appreciate it. May I make a recommendation? I want to point you towards something that is not our work, but I really think is worth your time. I got lost for about 30 minutes in this colorful map this afternoon that shows the shift in American politics between 2012 and 2016 when President Trump was elected. It is a map that shows the Denver area in boring old gray, and that is because we were one of the least changed metro areas in terms of politics. We swung just a half point to the left. The deep red districts are districts that swung more Republican, led by Zanesville, Ohio's 28-point rush to the right. You see Salt Lake City there, the deep blue in the Rockies? They went from pro-Romney to anti-Trump, and that made for a deep blue 28-point leap to the left. You can get lost just like I did in all of those different media markets. There's a link on next Twitter timeline. Our next question is about a rare free parking spot in Denver. No meter at the spot near Cedar and South Broadway. You can tell the spot next to it has a meter, as does the rest of the street. We asked Denver Public Works how this works when somebody just absconds with a meter like that. They say for the time being it is a free spot, but the time limit on nearby meters still applies. So if that red car isn't gone in 2 hours, they could get a ticket. There is another bad OFO out on Denver's streets. We've been keeping track of the city's sad and abandoned dockless bikes and scooters since they arrived here recently by the hundreds. And, well, you're not getting far without a handlebar, son. OFO told us that riders are not responsible when one of their bikes just snaps in half like that. They will pick it up from that spot in Lodo if somebody reports it through the app. Speaking of public transit in all its many forms, that under wraps is one of RTD's new light rail trains. They're adding 29 new ones. They're coming from Sacramento. That got me wondering what happens to Denver's old light rail trains. They don't just get junked, do they? Or will we sell them to some other city that's not as nice as Denver? Here's the deal. After about 20 years, they'll take them out of service, revamp them, fix them up, and then put them back out, hoping to get another 20 years. So think about it like that. The first trains from 2014, they were revamped in 2014 after coming in service in 1994.
Someone made an addition to a Welcome to Colorado sign that definitely doesn't say welcome. After white nationalists attempted a big rally this weekend, we learned where they're showing their faces in Colorado. Well, kind of showing their faces. Next. The most Colorado thing we saw today is an unwelcome to Colorado sign. Someone stuck a no vacancy sticker on the welcome to colorful Colorado sign. That appears to be a homemade edition, so we're talking about some effort here. You'll see this driving south on I-25 into Weld County from Wyoming, if you can get there before CDOT scrapes it away. And apparently this has happened before. We shared the first on Instagram, and an ex-viewer named Christine Hegstrom sent us this no vacancy edition from a sign on I-76 near the Nebraska border. You will note that there are some spelling challenges here, as it actually reads no vacancy.
Hi there. Other than the smoke and haze, it would have been a beautiful summer day. Two features that we're dealing with right now: high pressure off to the west, driving the winds and the smoke and haze to the north and west into Colorado. A secondary of low pressure off to the east of us, also bringing in the low level, mid-level cloud cover really too, and keeping that smoke and haze intact. The worst of the smoke is north and east of us, and we do see a little bit of a wind shift tomorrow with the weak front that's going to kind of slide in from the north. Our high today right about what you'd expect for this time of year, and on the radar we're tracking a few little thunderstorms, but the moisture will increase tomorrow as high pressure begins to move over Colorado, pulling up some of that moisture from the south. Tonight, with that low off to the east, the clouds will increase across the Front Range and eastern plains, the fog making it almost to Denver. And then tomorrow the ridge shifts east, the front comes in from the north, and we have actually about a 20% chance of rain from storms in the afternoon, and storms should stay below severe limits. Haze, smoke, partly cloudy tonight, low 61. That's where we start tomorrow. Tuesday's high 83, a little bit cooler, and again a 20% chance of thunderstorms. We go up to about a 30% chance of rain midweek ahead of a nice Friday, and then a stronger storm coming in late in the weekend, and a nice big cooling trend. Temperatures could be in the 70s early next week, Kyle, along with a good chance of much needed rain.
Kathy, thank you. White nationalists crawled out from behind their computer keyboards last year to march by the hundreds in Charlottesville, Virginia. Attempt at a rally repeat in Washington, D.C. yesterday drew fewer than 20 of them. Today I asked Scott Levin, head of Colorado's Anti-Defamation League, whether hate groups are showing their faces in Colorado these days.
One thing that's happened over the past year is we've had close to 24 different incidents of white supremacist propaganda being distributed through flyers and postings, primarily on college campuses. In fact, 8 campuses around Colorado have been hit by these flyers, mainly by white identity groups like Identity Europa being a big one.
What kind of things are they saying?
A lot of it has to do with white pride and trying to get people to be tied back into and take advantage of their privilege that they have and not feel bad about that. Unfortunately, though, it's sending the other message, which is white pride at the expense of being proud about or having respect for any other groups in Colorado.
I don't think in recent decades has there been a time when hate groups in America are getting more media attention than they are getting now. Is that a good thing?
Well, it's a good thing for America to know what's happening out there and to learn from that. It's not a good thing to elevate them to having some sort of significance as if this was authentic ideology that people should adhere to or follow.
Explain the difference to me.
So for me, I think that it's important. We need to know about the underbelly and what's occurring in America, because if we're not aware of it, we're not going to take action to try and counter those ideas. So that's on the one hand. But on the other hand, we can't elevate them as if this is an authentic, truly American ideology.
My full conversation with Scott Levin is on the next YouTube page, and there you'll find a link to a new map where the ADL is tracking incidents in Colorado like those white nationalist flyers on college campuses. 37-year-old next viewer says he did everything right, still had a heart attack. He sent us feedback from the hospital, and we are inviting him on tonight for a very personal warning. That's next. Everyone's doctor says to eat healthy, to exercise, to manage stress. Dustin Shiver followed that advice, and the guy who lives in Littleton still found himself in the hospital at age 37 after a heart attack. 3 weeks later, Justin's just figuring out how genetics was his heart health blind spot.
I'm 37. I've been doing some high-intensity interval training 3 to 4 days per week. Hiking in the mountains, Rocky Mountain National Park. We've climbed a couple of 14ers as well. Oatmeal every morning. I eat a salad most days for lunch. Thursday, July 26th, I worked out at the gym, did a very strong high-intensity interval training workout there. Came home following that. Took a shower. While I was in the shower, I started feeling extremely tired and had a sensation of kind of being electrocuted all over my entire body. We then went to Swedish Southwest emergency room where I was informed that I was having a heart attack. And within 20 minutes of that happening, I had a stent in my heart and was spending the next 2 days in the intensive care unit, trying to make sense out of everything that happened. I have a maternal family history of heart disease. Despite how physically active you may be, despite how well you take care of yourself in regards to stress management, eating properly, having good people around you, genes and genetic factors will trump those every time. Please take my experience as something to motivate you to consult with a physician, have conversations with your family members, find out as much as you can so you can make the best choices for you and hopefully limit as much as you can the possibility of having something like this.
Harvard Medical School says about 5 to 10% of heart attacks happen before the age of 45, talking about mostly young men. Dustin says his doctor expects that he will be back in the gym, continuing his healthy lifestyle in about a month. Jerry Mellman was not a pro athlete. Chances are you did not know his name. But the Denver Broncos, the Colorado Rockies, and the Colorado Avs all knew his name and noted his passing last week. For decades, Mellman was a sports photographer for the Intermountain Jewish News. He died a week ago today. He was 91. Born and raised in Denver, he was just a man with a passion for sports. During the Broncos game yesterday at Mile High, they had a tribute set up in the press box where he used to work. Colleagues at the Intermountain Jewish News tell us that Mellman's focus was always on others.
He was around all these famous people. That was what he did, you know, and these big celebrities. You know, we've got this great picture that he took of Muhammad Ali, for example. It almost doesn't get bigger than that. But he himself was such a modest person. It was never about him. It was about who was in the picture.
Before his sports photography career, Mellman had an opening act as a very successful attorney in Denver. If there's anything we've learned here, it is that people don't read the signs and follow the rules. Sometimes, though, it would appear animals do. That and your feedback when we, unlike Paxton Lynch, return. It's a sign spotted by next viewer Kenny Nygaard in Grand Lake. It reads, "Sorry, no pets allowed." And beneath there is a very conscientious chipmunk, deeply considering whether or not it is subject to the rule on the sign and is thinking about just turning around and going home. Kenny got a laugh, thought you would too. Email your signs to next@9news.com or get our attention with the hashtag #HeyNext. Patricia's mad at me. She says, "Just curious, why is it that when blacks, Muslims, illegals protest, they're portrayed as you poor people, but if more than 4 white people gather, we are portrayed as KKK and Nazis?" Patricia, again, it's about the message. The message of the white nationalists is we are better than all of those other groups. If any of those other groups march with signs talking about how they are better than white people, well, then I would find that pretty objectionable as well. Rex and Alex are concerned about my voice. It's just a little cold. Hopefully it will be better tomorrow. Bernard says, "Why doesn't Kyle wear a necktie? It looks very unprofessional." I'll wear a tie tomorrow. We'll see if that makes me more professional. See you next time.